All right, it's live time, everybody. There's just too much on my mind, too much to share. I know probably no one will ever watch this, actually, but maybe somebody. This will affect a couple of people. You got to keep doing it. Uh, and you'll get through to whoever needs to hear it, I guess. I'm trying to find the most flattering. Oh, God, every angle in this room looks like I'm on the island or something. How do I get I need to cut my hair. Fuck. All right. Anyway, let me get an ashtray. This doesn't look that creepy. Okay. Anyway, let's give people a sec to get into the chat, to settle in. I watched Citizen Kane last night again. I know I talked about it on my last stream, but we're going to get into it again. I know people are dying to hear my opinions about that. We're going to talk about Magnificent Ambersons AI. We're going to talk about the emails, of course. Probably do about 2 hours of trauma dumping, info dumping. I think the last time I watched Citizen Kane was probably sometime in the 2010s. I think I watched it when I lived in Park Slope. I don't exactly remember. But this is one of the things, there's this quote about, I think it's about Don Quixote, but I guess it could apply to anything, which is like, you read a book when you're 20 years old and you go back and you read it when you're 40, or you read it when you're 60, or when you read it when you're 80, and it's different. It's like you have a different understanding of it. You have a different perspective of it. And so you have sort of different visions of what it means at different times in your life. And this is something that Joyce Carol Oates tweeted the other day. Joyce Carol Oates is good on Twitter. I hate to say it. I think she's a voice of truth in a space full of junk. And it's good that she chooses to engage that way. She's prolific in so many different fucking respects. But in any case, she said this thing about, because one of the big memes on the internet, common frames of reference, is like The Sopranos. And so I forget what she was saying. She was tweeting about The Sopranos or something, and she was saying that she considers Tony Soprano and the show and what happens on the show to sort of be common currency, just like Huck Finn or The Great Gatsby. And I think she's right. I mean, a lot of discourse, right, in our society is about, or not in society, but just like in a lot of the magazines, in a lot of literary culture, the discourse is like, who was the last sort of popular culture iconic novelist? Who was the last novelist who had, you know, an effect was on the culture at large, was like a cultural leader, had a readership, commanded a maybe it was Philip Roth, maybe it was uh, fucking Hemingway or something, J.D. Salinger. Who was the last author? Norman Mailer. Writers used to be, and books, right? Like something like Holden Caulfield. Now it's TV shows. I mean, or video, film, image, cinema stuff. And so, like, Tony Soprano is the fucking Huckleberry Finn of the 2000s. Don Draper, right, is the fucking Great Gatsby, basically, of the modern era, because people are forgetting how to read. It's becoming obsolete almost. And the thing is, you can't really fuck with these kind of like are we all going to get brain rot and our cerebrums are going to atrophy and like become, maybe, people are trying to fight it, but it's futile. Like this whole flip phone thing. It's ridiculous. People are starting to get offline, or there's perennial talk about how Instagram's dead, how nobody uses Instagram. It's like, I'm sorry, that's just not true. Everybody's still on fucking Instagram. It still like rules people's fucking social lives and their perceptions of themselves in a lot of ways. At least young people. Anybody under the age of 50 probably. That's considered young nowadays. Nowadays, it's like you meet 50-year-olds that you're like, I mean, maybe it's just because I'm older, but like, it's Eric Wareheim's 50th birthday coming up, or like, it's like, there's no way that guy can be more than 35. Just like I don't know, psycho-emotionally or something. And so I guess I'm making a larger point about the way that culture is supplanting literary culture, alphabetical reading ass culture. Not that it's going to go away. I mean, I think writers are frustrated at their own lack of importance. Everybody had a dream that they were going to be fucking Susan Sontag or I mean, Thomas Pynchon is having a big moment. Cormac McCarthy, but these guys, they get their cultural impact from the movies. It's like not really very many people. Like Cormac McCarthy sort of had a niche audience of like smart people who cared about literature, but he wasn't really famous. And maybe he still isn't, but like until No Country for Old Men. And Thomas Pynchon, I'm not sure is really famous, but like he's also sort of famously publicity averse. There's no photographs of him. But it's like, it's a similar thing where it's like, if anybody knows who he is, it's not because they read fucking Vineland. It's because they made a fucking movie about it. And I don't know what's wrong with that. Maybe this is part of it is part of the reason why our culture has atrophied. I mean, I was watching this video. One of Donald Trump's favorite movies is Citizen Kane. There's a video on YouTube. Look it up. It's a minute long. It's Donald Trump talking about Citizen Kane. And he knows what he's talking about. his thoughts on I mean, I'm sure he ripped them off from somebody. He probably heard somebody else say all this shit, but his thoughts on Citizen Kane are pretty sophisticated considering who we're dealing with. Uh, he was pretty articulate about it. I mean, his tweets, I wouldn't say that they're articulate, but like he definitely has force with words. He has a power with words. Like he comes up with these really weird phrasings and that become like famous. And so Trump, I think, actually is maybe a better writer than Obama. How many fucking things did Obama say that like entered the common parlance? Trump, it's like half the shit he says. It's like, Jesus Christ, everybody repeats it. Did you hear what he said this time? He said, quiet piggy. Or his fucking tweets, Koveffi. And I get why Trump would be into Citizen Kane. I think the thing that's amazing about it to me is it's a prismatic portrait of this character. And it's a really interesting way of sculpting and realizing this character. The movie is full of all these sculptures. He's collecting all these sculptures from Europe, and I think the movie is a sculpture in a way. It's really about chiseling a sketch of this man, which is sort of a fake autobiography, a fictionalized biography of William Randolph Hearst. And maybe I will take this off. And yeah, nobody wants to hear about Citizen Kane on a 2 p.m. on a Wednesday. And it's about the original title for it, ironically, was American, which I think is kind of it has dimensions because the thing about Kane is he's not really one of us. I mean, he sort of is. He's sort of plucked. He starts out like us. His dad beats him. His mom is sort of emotionally destroyed, disconnected. And they come into this money just sort of by accident. And so you can see a lot of these mogul types, these kind of billionaire epic people like Howard Hughes, people like Elon, obviously, people like Trump. It really does feel like an original character. It feels like it's not. I mean, obviously, I think it's largely based on William Randolph Hearst, but I think there's things about it that remain ambiguous, or like the character changes so much it's hard to pin down certain things. Like I was sort of trying to pin down the politics. Part of the Kane character is he doesn't really have any allegiance to any. He's sort of a populist, like socialist almost, it sounds like. But then he's also a rich guy who's all he does is it's all about him, and collecting, and he's trying to fill this wound. This is what the whole movie's about, is this rosebud. This kind of dating sexual, I think the movie does aspire to be poetry in some ways. That was my big takeaway watching it this time, is just like all I could hear was like Algonquin Round Table, which I'm pretty sure Herman Mankiewicz was a member. Let's look it up real fast. I've not seen Mank. Yeah, he was a key member of the famous Algonquin Round Table group in New York City. The Voltaire of Central Park West, it says. And so that was what, as I'm watching the movie this time, my big takeaway was, wow, this dialogue is like it's I don't know if it's not like trying hard to be witty, but that's the tenor of the whole film is like this kind of witty. Every line in that movie practically is memorable in a way, the music of it, the acting actually. One of my big takeaways this time was the Orson Welles performance is actually quite remarkable. I think it sort of gets like it doesn't, there's so many things in that movie that are celebrated and memorable. The music, the cinematography, the editing is really interesting. The script is incredible. And so his performance as the center of the film um doesn't really get it doesn't, he doesn't get talked about like Marlon Brando or something. And he's a little older than Marlon Brando. His style kind of predates the method, I suppose. As I'm watching it, I'm like, I'm trying to think, what is Orson Welles like theater eh, training? Like is he a Stanislavski guy? Is he like what's his acting? Because it really is a theater company. This movie, he really feels like a theater kid. And the Mercury players really feel like, these they're kind of lame in a way. They're nerds, but they're theater nerds. And so they make this incredible work. And I'm thinking, well, what is Orson Welles? Because the famous scene, right? He has this kind of like cathartic hotel room. It's not a hotel room. It's Marion Davies, what's her name in the film? Fuck. I can't remember his second wife's name. Oh, I can't believe I can't remember this. The singer, the opera singer. Kane caught a love nest with quote singer. The makeup, I don't know, has stood up that well. The makeup is kind of uh not that I give a shit about that type of thing. Makeup in Hollywood movies, especially when they're doing like old people makeup, it almost always looks bad. But Kane, I would say that's the one thing in the movie that I'm like, I don't really know if this. I mean, I can understand how people might see it now and not really get what is so. And I read an interesting thing that said it's not even really groundbreaking. It's not. It's sort of an encyclopedia of film techniques that had been done before, but Citizen Kane kind of takes all of them, uses them, and does it really, really well. I mean, you couldn't really do it any better. Things like shooting like the ceilings, right? This was a big deal. The fact that they could put the camera low and shoot up, and you'd see in a lot of these scenes in Citizen Kane, the characters are moving back and forth through these big rooms, and you're looking at the ceilings, you're seeing like, the load bearing fucking pillars and shit. And so you're getting like a lot of environment. He gets a lot of meaning. He gets a lot of metaphor out of the staging that way. Staging relative. There's a lot of like effects with like forced perspective. And so they use every trick in the book. Citizen Kane didn't necessarily invent a lot of this stuff. It wasn't the first movie to do fake news reels or, there's a movie called The Power and the Glory, which is like a similar, they're talking about a character, all these different people that knew him are talking about him after he's gone. So it's like, it did sort of steal, I guess. You could say that, or, it was inspired by a lot of different, but it's just a compendium of all of this different, all these different techniques. And the narrative flow of it, I think, is really inventive. it's framed with this, it's almost like a fucking Dracula, the way that the his house is portrayed on that opening sequence with the no trespassing, and it's almost like fucking Castlevania or something. And Kane is sort of like this monster, I suppose. He moves almost like Frankenstein or something. And that's part of, I think he's created by this wealth he comes into. He's you can tell even as a little kid, he's a spark plug and he's pugnacious, and that's sort of the magic formula in our society, is like if you get somebody who's a born asshole and then give them an inheritance that's like massive. These are the people that really run the world, because they're not afraid to just like break the rules, trample, I mean, the shit that Kane does with his newspaper is just, it's yellow journalism, and it's all just like Rupert Murdoch shit. It's just lies. It's all lies, but there's not really any evidence that he actually helps like the working people. The working people are not really portrayed in the film. They're more just like a subjugated kind of like populace, or they're his, you talk about the people as if you own them, like he says when he's giving them that kind of dressing down. And so there's not, even though Kane sort of talks a lot about how he wants to stand up and fight for, the other people, who will fight for them if he doesn't? Who's going to fight for poor people and people who are disadvantaged, taken advantage of, whatever? And as I'm watching the film, I'm like trying to figure out like what are the politics of this. Orson Welles is sort of coming out of this 1930s New Deal, WPA grant, the Mercury Theater. The reason why that existed and became what it was because of the New Deal and the WPA, where there was a federal arts project in a federal theater where it's like the government pumped all of this money into employing writers, theater directors. And so that's how Wells and all of his John Houseman, all those people got the money to do all of the shit that they did, all of the, and he was in radio. So it's like he really had it. He was making money as an actor, and he dumped that money into his plays. That's kind of my understanding of it, is he really was in love with theater, and he only went to Hollywood to get money to do his plays and do his theater company. He only did Citizen Kane because they'd offered him a contract that nobody else had ever gotten before. They threw all this money at him. They gave him creative control. He didn't really want to go to Hollywood. He had gotten offers before. He played the Shadow, right? Lamont Cranston on the radio. And so he was famous, and he made a bunch of money from that, even though he was only like 21 years old or whatever. He just sort of arrived fully formed because he'd been, he was a world traveler as a kid. I think in a certain way he probably relates to, Charles Foster Kane. There's certain things about it that are autobiographical, I'm sure. It's not all just William Randolph Hearst. I think a lot of, Orson Welles' personal life is in there. Maybe it's sort of, he traveled the world as a little kid. I think they said the relationship the character has with his mom. That's like the core of the film, right? Emotionally, is Rosebud is really, he misses his mom, which is kind of, I mean, it's a little reductive, I suppose, in a certain way. It's not, I mean, like I was saying before, through the Freudian view of things, it's like that's how things work. There's some kind of like wound that happens when you're a kid, and then it just sort of shapes. With Kane, it's complicated. There's a number of things, right? Like his dad beats him. He gets this money, but you can tell the kid is already full of piss and vinegar. And so it's not necessarily like that. His personality was already kind of there. It's like, oh, if he would have, not been separated from his parents, would he have not been a total asshole? Like, I doubt it. He still would have been an asshole, probably. Maybe he would have been Ted Turner instead of Donald Trump. But these people exist. That's one of the other things that I think is so compelling, and like why the movie is it's important what it's about, because it's telling the story of right now in a certain way. Everything about the fake journalism lot, controlling the media, controlling what people believe, telling what people to believe. The way that Kane sort of has this fascination with the presidency, and it's sort of like expected that he's going to be the president, is like Trump. Trump, they were asking him in the 70s, like if he wanted to be the fucking president or whatever. Get my, Kane just kind of assumes that he will be the president, and he's on his way. And then it's once again, it's a timeless story of he gets busted with his guma. Susan Alexander Kane, that's what her name is. Which is essentially what happened to Bill Clinton, and basically what happened to Trump with Stormy Daniels in a way. But it's also a Rashomon type thing where it's like you're getting, unreliable narrators, let's say. It's just their memories of the guy. Thatcher, you're reading his fucking memoir of what Kane's childhood was. In the movie, it's aware of its own, it kind of insists on its own, like this whole thing with the jigsaw puzzles, right? It really insists on this metaphor. Kane is this jigsaw puzzle that, there's some pieces missing. And they even say it at the end, this sort of chorus of voices that sort of the media or the journalists at the end of the movie, these anonymous kind of like public opinion or whatever is they don't think, even if they did find out what Rosebud was, would it really unlock the key of this guy? Like, is that is it that simple? Like, not really. That's what he thinks. Looking back on his life, even though he's had everything, he's got all these fucking statues. He owns half the statues in Europe. He owns newspapers. He misses his childhood sled. Kind of an interesting image. What is it about sledding that's so memorable? And so, like it's blizzarded here, and all these people were sledding last Sunday. It was like a big, Ashley went sledding, and people have fond memories of sledding. It's a romantic time. It's easy to romanticize sledding. The world kind of becomes magical. That whole thing, the letter, that scene where it goes, or it goes from Thatcher's memoir. It closes up on his handwriting. It's his handwritten papers. He goes to the Thatcher library, and they sort of like pan over, and then it cross dissolves to the snowy landscape, and that Bernard Herrmann score swells in with all of the harps and bells and whatever the fuck they're playing, strings. That's magic. There's a lot of magic in that film. There's a moment at the very beginning where they're walking into the Enquirer office for the first time, and they split the pole. Kane walks on this side and Leland walks on this side, and then he stops. Leland stops and he goes back around to follow Kane. And it's such an amazing moment because it tells the whole story of their relationship in 2 seconds, and it does it silently, and it does it and it just it I mean, maybe I was just high, but it makes the hair on the back of your neck stand up because, um, it's spooky, it's almost superstitious. It is a superstition, this thing of splitting it's like if you walk on this side thing and I walk on that side thing, that's like bad luck. We have to walk together or else. And it happens as soon it happens the first time they walk into the Enquirer, and that is what happens in their lives, right? Once he gets married and sort of becomes this bitter guy trying to force his wife's opera career to happen, Leland sort of like recedes into this drunken uh in their friendship. He moves to Chicago. He doesn't want to work in New York anymore. He doesn't want to be around Kane. They're no longer, I mean, this happens in life, right? You at a certain age, you get married, it's no longer hanging out with the boys all the time. And him and Leland are like these playboy rich kids. They got kicked out of every Ivy League school and probably just ran roughshod all over. And he's curious, Kane is curious about the newspaper because he can weaponize it. That's why he doesn't care about, you know, mining or shipping or any of this other shit he owns. Thatcher's a smart financial manager. He diversifies Kane's portfolio to make him wealthy and shit. But all Kane really wants to do is boss people around, tell people what to think, be in control. It's really, the movie is really about control. And it's a natural human inclination it's your ego, like you want to control the narrative. You want to own everybody. If we could get our way and we could just, everybody's coming to a party at my house on the weekend, I'll fly you in and no one's having any fun. And that's the toxicity of what happens to Kane and what wealth does to people, I suppose, is like you can get your way. You can act out on your fucking ego and when people try to wound you or this or that, you can try to force them to you don't think my wife can sing? She's a quote singer, huh? Well, but it doesn't work. The character just gets more and more kind of poisoned and just kind of retreats more and more into their own world where they can be the boss. Xanadu. They said he ruled over Xanadu like a feudal lord. William Randolph Hearst. They said it was half the size of Rhode Island. San Simeon is half the size of Rhode Island. And it's got like the largest private zoo in the world. He can be the boss there. Make everybody suffer. His wife is just doing puzzles all fucking day. She's sexually frustrated. I mean, there's a lot going on in that fucking movie. It's like a novel, really. Like, it's amazing how compressed everything is, and it does feel like a lot of shit is kind of truncated and abridged to make it fit in a movie. And so there, yeah, there are things about it that like are a little dated, maybe. Um, I first saw that movie, I think probably, shortly sometime around the year 2000, I think. 2000, 2001. I don't remember. I had it on tape. I taped it off Turner Classic. I think they showed it pretty regularly. There was a birthday. I forget what birthday. It was either my 14th, 15th, 16th birthday. We went to, I think, what was that fucking pizza place? Tommy's Pizza, Lane Avenue, which was right across the street from Half Price Books on Lane Avenue. Half Price Books used to be Sun TV when I was a kid. Sun TV was an appliance store. And then it became Half Price Books. And Half Price Books was my favorite place in the world when I was a teenager. It was like, and in college. Like, I was always going to fucking Half Price Books and collecting and like Kane, trying to fill that hole. I mean, it's consumerism. That's really the American. He's got this hole and he's buying shit. He's collecting people, he's bossing people around. He wants to be a politician because he wants so much adoration, and his speech is very smug. The speech he gives at Madison Square Garden is pretty arrogant. Magnificent Ambersons is kind of about the same thing. The little kid character, the Tim Holt character, is a nightmare. It's like, take money and add it to a sociopath or a psychopath, and that's what these movies are kind of about. Or like, just like brash people. If you add that kind of person, and a lot of times those are the people that are wealthy. There's something genetically, I think, if you have a huge sense of entitlement and you don't care about people's boundaries and you're determined to just like use other people to work for you, a lot of time it is those people that get rich. It's not necessarily the people with the best ideas or the most talent, especially if they're born rich. Look at Trump. Look at how bad it can get. Is that the American formula? Is you got to be a fucking criminal to be a billionaire, right? There are no ethical billionaires. There's no evidence in the movie that Charles Foster Kane tries to be ethical, really. We don't really see that. We don't see if he does. He has this declaration of principles or whatever, but the only fucking thing he uses his newspaper for is to start a war for like fun. It's not really, he seems to just do it like on a lark. You provide the prose poems, I'll provide the war. Every line in the movie is like that wit. There's like some kind of witty, which like, Casablanca, I guess, is kind of like that. It's more like a comic. In a certain way, it plays almost like a light comedy. You can tell he'd probably seen Renoir. He'd probably seen Rules of the Game, maybe. Every movie after that looked like that. So it's hard to see now. As I was watching it, I was remembering things that I'd read in books like, oh, yeah, this shot is remarkable because of XYZ. This is an optical print, or this is a matte painting, or I mean, there are a lot of the way it starts with that whole fake newsreel. Well, it starts with the gothic kind of atmosphere. It starts with like this spooky, antisocial, no trespassing. You can't, like, you're just saying the character doesn't want you to know. And he owns this place. You know, that's private property. He bought it. He's got a fence. And then it goes into the newsreel. And so it's almost like the War of the Worlds thing where it's like that is a pro, you know, it's posing like it's actually a newsreel about something, even though it's part of the movie. You might stumble into the theater and think, what is it's almost like Brecht or something. Because it's going to trick you into thinking it's real. Oh, is this a real guy? It's posing like it's the real thing. Like it's using the form of it's like Ulysses. It's using the form of the newsreel, which is appropriate for the character, right? Because he is a newspaper. So the movie is full of newspapers and headlines, but it starts with the most current thing. It starts with news on the march. It starts with his death, right? A really momentous, and so the movie's sort of an obituary. But dramatically, that that makes a lot of sense. It's like uh start at the end and then whoop, work your way back because you're going through this kind of confusing uh gives us an excuse to look back at the character's life, sum it up, visit all of these people, see their reactions in the moment. So, I mean, part of the reason why I wanted to talk about this because I think in a certain way, and this might sound ridiculous, but I think in a certain way, Citizen Kane does represent like the high watermark of like American culture. Like, because I say that because it feels like the most sophisticated expression of like a really interesting, s- unique, but like American feeling. Like there's so much that kind of died with the war. Everything after the war became prefab and cheaper, and this is something they talk about in New York, right? The pre-war apartment buildings, people want pre-war because the everything changed after World War II. Like the way that they and Citizen Kane was made and released literally right before Pearl Harbor. Citizen Kane was shot and written, I think, in 1940, and it came out sometime in 1941. I think like in the beginning or middle of 1941, not the end, like 6 months or a year before Pearl Harbor. Like the war was happening, and the movie sort of touches on that. And as I'm watching it, I'm thinking, well, what is significant about this story that they're telling it at this moment in history? Hitler's in the movie, right? There's a little scene of Kane and Hitler, which looks kind of hilarious. And I mean, it's true. Now, how many fucking pictures of people are, people have their picture taken with Trump or any of these fucking people? Epstein. There he is smiling on the balcony with Hitler. And they don't go too hard into, they don't really reference that. And it's not, I wouldn't say it's the most pro-America movie. It was released the same year as Casablanca, and Casablanca is a lot more sort of a patriotic or Yankee Doodle Dandy. A movie like Yankee Doodle Dandy is basically propaganda. Kane is like this movie that's sort of specifically about America, or I don't know, is it a critique of America? Is it a critique of capitalism? They use the word anarchist a lot in the film. They never say communist. They accuse it, it was sort of before the Red Scare. That was one thing as I was watching it, I was hyper aware of, was like the time of when it was made. When does Kane, like, he was born, I think, sometime around the end of the Civil War. I think that first scene of him with the sled is like early 1870s. And then it picks up when he's, 25 or whatever. And assuming, or I don't know how old he is, but it's like the 1890s. He's got a gas light lamp. The times when newspapers really did rule the fucking world. That was like the TikTok. That was the closest fucking thing they had to TikTok. Like the fucking newspaper. And so, but at that time, they made the movie in 1940. So that wasn't that, it would be like now if we made a movie about the fucking 80s or whatever. The 70s. It was like, that was probably their like retro fashion cycle or whatever. There's probably a lot of jokes that we don't get now about like the way they dressed, or even the fact they're calling each other anarchists, I think was sort of a joke at the time. Because it's sort of like, I don't know. I'm imagining a lot of the when I analyze something, I do kind of want to like make up stuff that's not there. Because or like, I don't know, it's an opportunity to try to come up with, meanings that are implied, but by meanings, but not necessarily the upfront. And so I think conjecturing without any kind of basis whatsoever about what the authors were intending, I think is fair. Is fair play. Fair play is yeah, so I think a lot of that stuff, it takes place in like 1890s, 1900s, maybe 1910s. And then he kind of loses everything when the stock market crashes, which is not everything. He loses his newspapers. He has to sell his newspapers. He sort of relinquishes control over, to hell with him. He becomes sort of a recluse, right? Okay, I got a message. And so there's something about it that feels Byzantine. It feels like it has a relation to Frank Lloyd Wright in a weird way. Citizen Kane, a lot of the interior design of it is there's so much detail, there's so much ornamentation. Like, all of the doors have these fucking, and partially that's showing the opulence and the wealth of the character, but it's also just a lost kind of craftsmanship. There's a whole architectural idea about America that's sort of, once World War II happened, things changed. Things became way cheaper, way more mass produced. Not that necessarily everything that was made after the war was garbage. Like, America certainly, I think, has, a lot of cultural high points in the whatever decades after World War II, rock and roll music, but it's like the meaning of something like rock and roll music and the aesthetic that is put front as like a populist entertainment. I mean, it is a film by Citizen Kane. I think rock and roll is more of a accessible mass, it's for teenagers. It's it's uh it's more like candy, it's more like prod. I don't know. Citizen Kane is a film. It wasn't necessarily a blockbuster, and I think to this day it's not really like a audience uh like fan favorite or something. It's not When Harry Met Sally. That's part of what I'm saying is like it did feel like I guess there was like this elite, but like something like Frank Lloyd Wright feels distinctly American. I mean, it's influenced by Eastern design, probably Central American, South American. It's influenced by everything, but it takes in really interesting um forms and stuff. When I was in high school, I had this book, Frank Lloyd Wright Writings and Drawings or something, and it was like he did this thing with his hands where he like showed different building and his stuff is kind of Egyptian. Um but it's also like Art Deco. I think it represented an original American that was like, ripping off all this other shit, but it had a sophistication and a sort of continentalness, I think, that matched European culture. Wells was somebody who had traveled to Europe his whole life. He'd been to China and stuff as a child. A lot of people, I think it was a joke when he was a kid, a lot of people thought he was Asian or he looked like a Chinese sage. There was some article about him when he was like 10, and it said he looked like some kind of, people always thought Orson Welles was a genius. But, and this is something that I also kind of find incredible about Orson Welles, is like that was the high point of his career, sadly. His first fucking movie when he's 25 years old, he made this movie that a lot of people thought was the greatest movie ever made or whatever. But then it was kind of all downhill from there. His second movie famously got mutilated by the studio against his wishes, which I think is sort of what happened to this country. And that's something I want to talk about. They're talking about recreating the magnificent ambersons in AI, which I think is probably the best thing they could do with AI, actually. I'll get into that in a minute. But, Orson Welles kind of spent the rest of his life in decreasingly, by the 70s, he's on like these Dean Martin celebrity roasts and shit. He's on the Paul Masson commercials we all love. Did Orson Welles ever do a wrestling spot? Was he ever on WWF? It had to have happened. He was in the Transformers movies and shit. But I also kind of admire the fact that Orson Welles spent his whole life sort of like scraping together these like lo-fi and like half finished. Like I don't know what that's about. Was it like he psyched himself out? Was it like he just couldn't financially support? He had to sort of be this itinerant actor whore who would do I mean, he's in a lot of movies. Orson Welles is in a lot of fucking movies. and to make money. I mean, he's in Casino Royale. He's in all those Henry Yaglum movies. But I think that's interesting that Orson Welles like has this tie to like these like hippie, like earthy, like Dennis Hopper. There's a movie Hopper Wells. And when Dennis Hopper directed Easy Rider, that was his first movie, I think. People may have thought, fuck, this guy is the new Orson Welles. He directed Easy Rider. Holy shit, it's mind-blowing. And, that movie, I don't know, it did kind of change. It's kind of underrated in a strange way. I mean, I don't know if that Henry Yaglum guy was making movies before Easy Rider, but I think Easy Rider enabled a lot of that type of filmmaking. Wim Wenders, I don't think Wim Wenders really would have existed. Slow cinema, more naturalistic. And the fact that Orson Welles is in, what's that movie with Jack Nicholson and Tuesday Weld? Orson Welles is in Central Park doing magic tricks. It's like, is that what, it's too bad we didn't have a society that, like, I don't know, could what did Orson Welles need to, like, keep making Citizen Kanes? I don't know. I think even his last movie, whatever, The Other Side of the Wind, I haven't seen the whole thing. Or F for Fake, for that matter. There's a lot of Orson Welles stuff I haven't seen. I haven't seen The Trial or The Stranger or Lady from Shanghai. Now I kind of, I haven't seen his Macbeth. I haven't seen his Othello. I mean, Touch of Evil blew me away. I saw it in the theater. I haven't really seen The Trial. I mean, Chimes at Midnight, one of the greatest movies ever made. Chimes at Midnight, probably the best Shakespeare movie, to be honest. The best, like, strict adaptation of Shakespeare. There's a showmanship and an entertainment quality to everything Orson Welles does. Even though it's, like, incredibly highbrow, or, I don't know. Is it? I don't know. Would it seem, he doesn't seem pretentious, but, like, I think that's part of what alienates people from Citizen Kane is it's like, it's complicated. It's not just vibes. There's some vibes, but there's a lot of there's a content, there's a lot of character, there's a lot of everything in that movie. Everything. It's doing it all. The acting. The acting in that movie is way more interesting than I think it gets credit for. It's not method acting. It's not like this, but in a way it is. That scene where he smashes up he said it, I felt it. I really felt it. It's like, that's method acting. He trashes her bedroom. It's like he breaks everything. It's like, that's kind of a violent outburst that a lot of the sort of like post-war culture would be similar to. Maybe that's just like male energy. But it's like Orson Welles doesn't really get any credit whatsoever for like being some kind of acting technique disseminator, really. The way that they say the lines is so amazing in that movie. If you just, something I never really thought about or noticed before, and any of the times I've seen it, you just kind of accept however they do it. But it's like, they'll take a lot of time between two lines of dialogue, and a lot will happen. They don't just say the fucking lines. Like, he's always playing the lines off something else. That scene where he comes in after he just got married, he just got back from Europe and he's got a mustache. So you can tell he's changed. It's like, uh-oh. He's dressed up. He's got a fucking mustache now. It's like he's like Wes Anderson after he grew his hair out. It's like, oh, he's changed something. He's a man, or the 7 stages of man. He just moved up into the next one. And he comes in and he's like kind of mumbling, and then he's kind of back and forth, and he's like, just a small, it's like he really he plays that scene. He doesn't just like come in and say the lines, and it's not like some close up and it's like it's all one shot. They dolly back, and then they dolly, all the people are sort of chasing him and shit. It's visually a metaphor for what's happening between the characters. It's like he's sort of dashing back in to just dash out again. And so the camera kind of goes with him. This whole group of people is just like flocking around him. Hey, 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 he's back. He's back. But he's moved on. Now he wants to be the president. They can run the newspaper. But there was some stuff that I thought was kind of weird choices. Like, okay, the scene where he just buys the staff from the other newspaper, right? He just buys it's sort of a famous cut. The camera goes in to these guys sitting there, and then it syncs up to a shot where it goes in on this picture of them, and then it sinks into a shot where they're taking a picture of them. And now they're his newspaper staff. And it's like, I guess they're trying to make a point about the character that, like, he doesn't really give a fuck about the journalism. It's just like he just wants it, so he buys it. He collects them. It's like, this is what I want. I got my candy, is what he says. Felt like a kid in a candy store. I got my candy. People are objects. He doesn't actually care. I don't know. Maybe that's just part of the dramatic purpose of the film, is it's not trying to politicize the character in any kind of specific. He's not really a socialist. There isn't, his whole thing against Getty's is corrupt. But that a lot of that could just be lip service. He never actually gets elected to anything. And he's just a rich hoarder. It's really about how he's a hoarder. Citizen Kane is a cautionary tale about sledding and hoarding. Don't go sledding, kids. You'll regret it on your deathbed. Yeah, we all miss fucking sledding. You have to grow up, okay? We can't all just be fucking sledding forever, okay? Become a snowboarder or something. They made it citizen. They should remake it. Now it's a snowboard. Rosebud is a snowboard. Reboot that motherfucker. There's so much to talk about. It does feel like it was maybe about Howard Hughes. Like I said, I was thinking about Ted Turner when I was watching it. Ted Turner had CNN and TBS and TNT and WCW Nitro and Thunder. It's an interesting archetype to make a character about. I guess that's, Megalopolis is sort of a similar character, or the Fountainhead. But I mean, what is it saying about America? He is the American because he's rich. And he's able to and what does it add up to? It's just empty. He owns everything. He's not happy. He lives this sort of ghoulish Xanadu. It's sort of making fun of the newsreel. I love all that stuff in the beginning, all that language in the beginning. As all these years he was, as all these years he lived, so many of them he was, or some kind of weird, convoluted news speak. Just, just like Ulysses. There's a whole chapter of Ulysses that's like a newspaper or whatever. I mean, I think, yeah, like Citizen Kane exists somewhere between modernism, postmodernism. It's it utilizes a lot of different film techniques. It poses, it pretends, but I think Wells was doing it for dramatic effect. He was trying to orchestrate and maximize um the moments. It's just weird how memorable all of that, the music of that film, the soundtrack, the line readings, the characterizations are, maybe I've just seen it so many times. Um, is it better than Casablanca? Like, I think it just represents like a world that just got destroyed by the war. Um, the and I knew more about the Magnificent Ambersons when I was younger. I don't know exactly why they fucking mutilated it. I know it was what? His cut was like 2.5 hours or something, and they cut it down to like 90 minutes. They reshot some things. Robert Wise, right? He was the editor of Citizen Kane, and I think he directed West Side Story and some other shit. The Star Trek movie, I think he directed the Star Trek movie. But he redirected some scenes from Magnificent Ambersons. And the thing is, they have the screenplay, right? And they have the shooting script with all the fucking shot list and this and that. And Orson Welles' stuff was like heavily, it was like fucking Star Wars or something, the way that they storyboarded every goddamn thing. And there was design of everything in these movies, all of the sets, all of the effects. Um, it was all planned the fuck out. They have pictures from the scenes. They have probably the lighting schematics and shit like that, maybe even. Was it done? I think it was done. It was literally like they had a cut of it. This is like David Lynch's Dune. And I think the studio just destroyed it. I read there was a whole article in Vanity Fair. About the sort of espionage. Wells left the country to work on he was shooting some film in South America. He was making some film, I think, for like the war effort. It was because it was like 1942, 43. So it was like literally the United States is in World War II. And so Wells was in South America. He was shooting stuff at like Carnival and shit. And while he was there, they massacred his film. It was just too hip. The audiences were just not going to get it. I don't think Citizen Kane had been like a flop, but it wasn't, and it was a critical smash, like the critics. I watched this whole documentary last night about William Randolph Hearst and and Orson Welles and the battle over Citizen Kane. It's pretty interesting. It's on YouTube. I'm just gonna talk about Citizen Kane the whole fucking time. It's been an hour already. I've been talking about this fucking movie. No one is ever gonna watch this. I don't care. I do this. I'm doing this for me. This is for me. This is my film criticism. Maybe I've just been brainwashed into liking Citizen Kane, but I generally, I mean, it's a for a fucking 2 hour movie. It's common currency. It's a novel. Charles Foster Kane is as useful and as iconic an American character as anyone has made, I would say. It's almost like a Wes Anderson film where it's like a fictional, it's like a real guy, but they just like changed his name and shit. And like, oh, it's not Sansonian, it's Xanadu. It's not um Jacques Cousteau. It's Steve Zissou. Same thing. Charles Foster Kane was the Steve Zissou of So yeah, I don't know exactly why. I just think the studio executives fucked it up. I don't know if it was because the message of the movie was like it wasn't like Eyes Wide Shut or something where they were like, we have to, this exposes us all. But I mean, I will say Magnificent Ambersons is another movie that's like about something. Like Citizen Kane is not just like a story. Like it's about power, it's about wealth, it's about a certain strain of American character that's enabled by capitalism, by our system, whatever the hell that is, the media. It's about history. So it's like it's a movie that's like it's useful in times like this and is perennially something that can be referenced because it's like it has so many strong echoes. There's more, there's more Charles Foster Kanes alive today than there ever have been, probably, because the wealth inequality. This is just what people, some people do with their wealth is try to dominate other people because their parents left them or whatever. So anyway, supposedly they're going to try with AI to reconstruct the missing. A guy wrote a book about it. This guy from Indiana University, Robert Carrington or something. I had all these books when I was a teenager. And they have the storyboards, they have images from the movie, they have the script. I like I said, I think this is the best thing they could possibly use AI for, because the only thing AI seems to be good at is like pilfering aesthetic and like spitting out like a sort of incest retarded, pardon my French, I don't mean to offend anybody, like image of previously existing intellectual property. It's just like recognizes branding. Like, what would it be like if Wes Anderson made Star Wars in the 50s, or what if they made Star Wars in the 50s? Like AI can do that. And so if AI could take the script and the storyboards, the images, if it can ape the actors and the style of the rest of the film, they might even have the music for it. Bernard Herrmann probably recorded all of the, that was something is like they had worked together in radio. So they were almost just kind of like extending their radio process into the visual. And I think it was just kismet in a way. Orson Welles was insanely famous from the War of the Worlds thing. And he got this ridiculous contract. and he just happened to fall in love with making movies and, like, be a natural, which is not surprising because he probably was good at everything. He was probably just like a hyper conscious person, and you see that. It's like every part of this movie is filled out, the soundtrack, the sound editing, and all of that in Citizen Kane. That's one of the things that was groundbreaking about it. And the Bernard Herrmann score, right? That guy went on to write some of the most memorable scores ever written for Hitchcock, for Taxi Driver, and he was like the composer on the Mercury Theater weekly radio show, writing music for, like, radio shows no one ever has heard since then, probably. And so by getting it into this movie, it took it to a whole other level. Um, so anyway, he was involved with the process the whole time. From the start, they were working with the composer, letting him write music, and I think they said they even played the music on the set sometimes that he had written for the scenes. And, other people were just not working that way. Orson Welles, he already had a working, it's like they were doing weekly radio adaptations. So he was constantly dramatizing these little stories, half an hour a week. I think they had done a Magnificent Ambersons radio show. They did fucking all the, Moby Dick, Hamlet, whatever, Shakespeare shit. So he has this acting company that he came to Hollywood with. They'd worked in theater, right? They're on Broadway and shit. They're doing 8 shows a week. They're very finely tuned. They're running on all cylinders when they get there. They hook up with Greg Toland and Herman Mankiewicz, who help a lot. All of the Hollywood people, they got the best people to do all of the production. And Greg Toland wanted, these cinematographer guys, if you set them loose, some of them just like they love shooting. They love trying out their toys. Hey, I saw this shot in this movie Sunrise where they pull a table apart and they go from interior to exterior. They go from the super bright outside to this dark interior all in one shot. I want to try that. They said Wells was he was influenced by Stagecoach, John Ford, and Caligari, German expressionist, and I'm sure tons of other shit. Like I said, that movie is like architectural, and the structure of it is super, like a Chinese box. So it's sort of, there's some things about the plot that are a little confusing. And I've seen it a lot of times. Like, why do his parents give him away? I mean, it's insane. Like, I guess people just make decisions like that in life sometimes, but does that kind of shit still happen? I don't know. So, yeah, if they, one thing AI could do, it could take the script, it could map it on the actors, on the blah blah blah. They could probably fine tune it, I imagine. And, would it be like watching the original? Like, not exactly. It'd probably be kind of funky and unconvincing, like all AI shit is. But uh I would love to see it. I mean, even the movie that we do have of the Magnificent Ambersons is an incredible movie. And yeah, you can kind of tell where it sort of changes. I haven't watched that all the way through in a long time either, but even that movie is hugely influential. The whole Tenenbaums opening and Age of Innocence, Scorsese Age of Innocence is a complete Magnificent Ambersons. That whole opening montage where it's with the Booth Tarkington narration and it's about just, society changes. I think that's really what Ambersons is about, is like time, technology comes in and lifestyle just changes, like things are ever shifting. It's generational, it's like you meet them when they're young and he trips on the bass viola. Next thing you know, she's married to the other guy. They have this kid who's a fucking nightmare, and then it's about their kids. And the sets and I think they had a huge budget and things went well, I think, for the production. I'm not sure why they took it away. I just think they had a movie that wasn't going to be financially successful. And so they sort of sabotaged themselves. They should have just left it how it was, because they massacred who knows what it was. That's sort of the tragedy of it. Is like he had a movie that maybe was better than Citizen Kane, actually. That's what some people seem to think. And they literally destroyed every copy of it. I think just to get like the silver back. The thing about that old film is it has silver nitrate in it, so when you burn it, you can recollect the silver, and like that's valuable. It's more valuable than the movie, apparently. And so I think that's why they burnt the Magnificent Ambersons. But they were really just shooting themselves in the foot, because they would have made their money back. Oh, those movies were ahead of their time, is what they said. Orson Welles didn't really start to get reappraised for a few decades. His career just kind of, I mean, he was a movie star and he was on TV and shit, but he was sort of looked on as like a has-been in a lot of ways. And so I think it's interesting that most of his life, actually, he was this sort of like itinerant gypsy bohemian, catch as catch can, like just trying to scrape shit together. He probably lived like, I mean, he was in Europe and he was probably eating at super fancy restaurants all day, every day, and staying in five-star hotels and shit. But it's just, I don't know. That seems more like his weird personality than like, the reason why he didn't make another Citizen Kane. It's like a lot of his movies he never even finished. And it's like, I don't necessarily think that's a condition of financial circumstances. I think, like, I don't know, that's just the sloppiness of genius. He did it. He made the greatest movie ever. And I think he was an artist. He liked doing it, but it's like he didn't complete his Don Quixote movie. Even the Other Side of the Wind movie, I think that was something that was unfinished, and Bogdanovich had to like edit it sort of according to how he wanted it to be or something. Like it's not, even that's not really a legitimate start to finish. And even something like Touch of Evil, it was like sort of a studio project. It wasn't like, hey, make a movie about whatever you want. He was sort of a hired gun, I think. And I think the other director fell through or something. And I mean, they're lucky they made that fucking movie. Oh my god. It's a garage rock lo-fi masterpiece. He's sort of a beatnik in a way. He's sort of a beat character, like Rex Roth or uh P.E. Cummings, sort of in a way. Citizen Kane is a mosaic. It's a newspaper. It's a comic book. It's chiaroscuro. There's a lot of shadows in it. It's four-dimensional. It's sad in a way. It's sad that they fucked up. Why couldn't Orson Welles continue to work on that scale? But I don't know. I mean, he made projects his whole life, and as an actor, he's in a lot of stuff. So he appears, he's on the Tonight Show a lot. He appears all over in strange places. There's a clip of him on the Dean Martin show that's sort of viral, at least in my house. And so, I think he's just something that has stood the test of time. Let me see what else I was going to talk about here. Okay. I had some other notes. Oh, yeah. I'm going to do 2 hours. No one's watching, so it doesn't even fucking matter. But I don't know. I just wanted to get all my thoughts down about Citizen Kane. I could go on and on and on and on. I'm sure I'll come back to it. But is this thing on? The thing about this is, like, now it's sort of common knowledge, and like everybody now is doing some kind of podcast talking thing. And so I don't know, when I started doing this, it felt more novel, but it also, it's in line with everything that I'm artistically experimenting with or trying to engage in. And it's sort of weird now that the whole fucking culture does it. And so it probably seems less interesting or something. It feels less. It's like I just have some fake stream that I put no effort into. I'm not even playing fucking Call of Duty or anything. Oh yeah, this is one thing I wanted to talk about. Ashley this morning was reading the Epstein files. Apparently there's a website, Jmail, which is like Gmail, but for Jeffrey. And you can search the Epstein files, which are just his emails. Apparently there's 12,000 emails between Woody Allen, or Soon Yi, rather, and Epstein. 12,000. They were neighbors. And I suppose they had common interests, let's say. 12,000 is a lot. I don't even think I have 12,000 emails total in my entire lifetime, to be quite frank. I don't think I've ever written 12,000 emails like total to everybody in my entire life. So that for Epstein to have 12,000 emails with Soon Yi doesn't look great. But apparently somebody who Ashley sort of knows through, like a friend of a friend is in, Woody Allen's kid, right, is in the Epstein files. I think emailing Epstein about a letter of recommendation or something. I don't remember. So, but anyway, Ashley was sort of, she knew somebody in the Epstein files. So, she started looking at it. She's looking what she was reading the Soon Yi emails to find restaurant recommendations, basically. She was going over because Soon Yi was sending Epstein. They were talking about what they order. There's some sushi restaurant that's under the Gagosian Gallery on the Upper East Side. And so they were emailing like what they order. Oh, me and Woody get oh, Woody, god damn it. We defended you, man. I have verbally apologized. I'm a Woody Allen apologist. I have verbally expressed support for Woody Allen many times on my live stream on the internet. So, god damn it, Woody. I thought he just had a thing for Soon Yi. I didn't realize he was an actual fucking pedo. Fuck. He wanted some pizza and some grape soda, I guess. So, Woody, you're done. You're canceled, buddy. I'm sorry, Woody. They're all in on it. It's real, people. It's real. The Epstein shit is fucking so real. Woody was on the island torturing children. I don't know. I've tried to, I don't know, dismiss it or rationalize it away. We can't do it anymore. Woody, no more Woody Allen films. You bastard. So anyway, but they've got a lot of food recommendations. They talked about food a lot. Apparently, Soon Yi was emailing Epstein about some community board meeting because they were going to go to this community board meeting, and Epstein's like, why? Why the fuck would you do that? And she's like, with the plebes. She's like, with the goy, with the goy cattle. Why would you, and she's like, well, they want to put a bike lane on our street, and Woody doesn't want it. So Woody Allen's hating on cycling culture, the piece of shit. Fuck you, Woody Allen, you fucking pedo monster. We hope you rot in hell. Your films look disgusting in retrospect. We'll never watch the movie Manhattan again. It's sad. That's my favorite one. Why does it have to be? I mean, I don't like it because it's about a Lolita thing, okay? That's not what I like about it. It's about the cinematography and just kind of the world building. The Manhattan world building. That's the best Manhattan world building film that he has, okay? It's not about the pedo, okay? That's not why. It's about Elaine's and that opening montage and the Gershwin and all of that. But it's hard. I mean, now that I've seen the files, is George Gershwin in the files? Who's in the file? Now it's like, I don't know. I don't think just being named in the files is like okay, Mamdani's mom, for instance, right, is in the files, Mira Nair, because there was some after party for one of her movies at Epstein's townhouse. So what? I mean, okay. It's not a good look at all to be in the files. But does that mean she was like roasting children alive? There are people that think that Mamdani is Epstein's child. There's literally a conspiracy online. I don't know how many people actually believe this, but at this point in history, probably a good percentage of the American public. Get Andrew 5, Channel 5. Get Andrew Callahan, Channel 5 to platform these fucking people who think Mamdani's because they're good stories. But these stories are real life. And okay, so there are people that think Mamdani is literally Epstein's son. These are the same people that think Tony Rodham was like the body they switched out. It's like Hillary's brother looks just like Epstein. It wasn't him. It was Hillary's brother. He died 3 days before. Maybe. What does it say that Hillary's brother looks just like Epstein? Is that a coincidence? Like, is that why they killed him? What are you saying? You think Mom Donnie is literally Epstein's son. You are out of your fucking mind. Like, literally, you're out of your mind. Like, touch grass. Like, okay, Mom Donnie might be a socialist. I love the thing he did with the observation tower. Oh my God. He's doing good rituals. That's light magic. That is one of the most beautiful policy choices I've ever seen. He did it on Black History Month, right? And it's Mayor David Dinkins, who was the first black mayor, observation deck. And this is true. I mean, I think symbolically, right? One of the divides, the Empire State Building used to be free, right? One of the divides in the New York of my era, which has been ultra billionaire city, luxury branding itself for the rich, catering to the ultra rich. There's no working class. There's no interesting bohemian people. There's no broke bohemians. It's just rich cosplaying Nepo baby. There's literally Nepo babies everywhere you look. Okay. Everyone in New York is a fucking Nepo baby. Let's say it again. Okay. Every fucking one in New York is a Nepo baby. I swear to God, it's true. Or they're a DEI hire. But in any case, it's a new day. It's a new dawn in the utopian secession country of New York City. And it's so one of the things that I think divides is the Empire State Building. Now it's like $50. It's $30. The top of the rock is $30. There's a huge line. These places used to be free. They were free, municipal spaces. This is indicative of our culture at large. We are just built for every fucking thing. Every goddamn thing is financialized. Anything you can make money off of, you have to now because everything costs money. And it's like everything's transactional, and like a bunch of rich pricks who own everything can financialize everything. The rest of us, what are we supposed to do? We can't share anything. We can't just cook for each other. We can't like fucking let somebody stay at our house. We don't have a guest bedroom. Who's ever heard of such of a thing? We have to rent it out. You could be making money off that bedroom. So you have to, unless you're rich. Then it's like, you get a whole loft or whatever. You can make paintings like Adrian Brody's. You can be a Basquiat imitator. These are the worst scum on earth. And they ruin. So this, okay, right, is I've lived in New York 15 years. You know the number of times I've been in like over the 10th, even 4th floor of a building. Like maybe I could probably count on less than 2 hands. There's very few times I've been in any kind of like high-rise situation. I don't think I've ever been on an observation deck. I've never been to the Empire State Building. I've never been to the fucking Trade Center. If they have one, they probably don't, I guess. I've never been to fucking Top of the Rock. I've been to, 235th. When 235th was free. That place is dope. I love 235th. They get a ringing endorsement. But because it costs money, and it costs a lot of money because it's for tourists, it's for rich people, whatever. It's for rich tourists. $30 because they know they can. And I don't know, I guess they have to, their property taxes or something. I think it's the only way the Empire State Building even makes money, to be honest. I think most of their money they make from the fucking observation deck. And so we live in a greedy society, and people just think about money constantly. Everything's about money. Make as much fucking money, rip people off. every fucking step of the way. Charge $15 for a beer, $15 for a hot dog. It's like it's insane. And so I've never been on any of these fucking observation decks. I've never been, what is it, the fucking Hudson Yards. I've never been to whatever the hell that is. Because it's all privatized outdoor space. And so Mamdani, in the warmth of collectivism, which apparently killed 15 homeless people, we'll talk about that, is going to open this David Dinkins observation deck. It's going to be the highest public observation deck in the city. 360-degree views to New Jersey and Brooklyn and blah, 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 blah. And so I think for people like me, deadbeats, this is a symbolic, and this is a symbolic victory and indicative. This is the beginning of free handouts and free shit for poor people. Well, just helping, recognizing, that is a class decision. This is only the beginning, right? Is like, we're gonna champion the public, not just people with fucking black American Express cards and private jets. Like, you matter now. Regular people, you get to, bask in what the city has to offer as well. You get to fucking see. I think the fact, it's a matter of like self-respect and how you visualize yourself. It humanizes you, because now as a poor person, you have access to a point of view. It's you can see the city in a new light. You can get that top-down God view that only rich people can afford now. Only Sting, or Steve Jobs in their penthouse apartments on Central Park West. Or now it's probably, I don't know, fucking a bunch of crypto douchebags. Or .com bill. Now it's just the worst people on earth, or the rich billionaires. And so hopefully this is indicative of a sea change in policy making. Like the free bus thing is the same thing. Now it's like, okay, now poor people, we've got a little bit of fucking mercy. It's not just, let's give a vacancy tax to all the landlords so they can keep all the fucking storefronts empty. So there's no businesses here. So it's like there's no street life. There's no vitality. There's no mom and pop. Everything caters to corporations now. There's no mom and pop. It's all Target and Popeye's chicken. In Chipotle. It's like, I didn't move to New York so I could eat fucking Chipotle. Okay? I moved to New York to eat at Indian restaurants that cost $6 and have magical food from all over the world, from the wonderful immigrant communities that come here and want to start businesses. That's why they fucking move here, because there's shitloads of brick and mortar that's just empty because the city caters to fucking property value. It's just like Trump. He said the other day, right? He doesn't want to crash the housing market because he doesn't want people to lose their wealth. People who already own houses, they're wealthy now. If you bought a house for $200,000 10 years ago, now it's worth $750,000 or $1 million or something. It made you wealthy. He doesn't want to. He could crash the market, but he doesn't want to, because he doesn't want those people to lose their wealth. Meanwhile, everybody in our generation is disqualified from buying a house because the real estate value is too high. It's the same fucking thing in New York. They don't want the real estate value to crash because all their money is bound up in it. It's all in the assets. They park all their money in this fucking shitty real estate, these shitty super talls, and they don't want the property value to crash. So they want New York to be safe, and they want a bunch of rich people to live here and bring their money here and eat in fancy fucking restaurants. And meanwhile, all of the culture that was sort of here when I moved here, which, was like cheap, interesting options. There was tons of idiosyncratic small businesses in New York when I moved here in 2010. There was a Big Lebowski store. There was curiosity shops. There was freaky little bars, there were dive bars. There were Lakeside Lounge. There was fucking all kind of little Indian restaurants on 6th Street. There was way more cab stands, you know. There was Pakistani food that was open all fucking night for cab drivers. So you could get like a healthy vegetarian, like delicious filling option. I could sit there as after work with some cab drivers, spend $8, $10. It was healthy, nutritious, not completely a bunch of corporate polluted fast food like now. Now it's all fucking, and I like Popeye's chicken, but I'm sick of eating goddamn Chipotle. Like all of that shit went away over the last 10 years. And everybody raised their prices. I mean, partially that's inflation, obviously, but it's also just like gentrification and private equity forcing everybody into just like this rip-off society where everybody just has to charge. But it completely caters to mass franchises. And I don't know, something fucking changed in the New York policy making that like made the city a lot more generic and suburban. Everything is like a chain now. And all of the like legacy businesses that are interesting are super expensive. Like Katz's Delicatessen or Barney Greengrass or whatever. It's like it's not really like utilitarian like people food. It's yeah, so it's just the Epstein files are kind of the fucking, they're like a microcosm of the violence that is like done to most of the people on earth, like structurally, by being exploited by the rich. Like the things that happened on Epstein Island, supposedly, allegedly, he never got to trial, I don't think. Are like in miniature, like an enactment of the violence, the class violence. Like they're literally subjugating, imprisoning, enslaving these victims. And there's a higher, like they have a staff on the island of like people that are like there to just maintain and take care of them. They're pilots, they're cabana people, cooks, whatever, landscaping people. Those people are all, subjugated and beneath them and just exist to serve them. But then they have these enslaved victims that like they apparently kill ritualistically, sexually torture, whatever the fuck they do. They use as pregnancy incubators or whatever, baby incubators, allegedly. And these are the same people allegedly that fight, that do Doge, that do these hostile takeovers, that fire hundreds of thousands of people, that cause people to lose their health care, that force people into a society that like, feeds them bad food, poisons them, gives them cancer. It's like by committing this ritualized violence together as sort of like this unifying act of transgression where it's like they've broken the law, they've sworn this like dark oath of like And they blackmail everybody. They got it all on tape. Um, it like desensitizes like what okay, of course I'm going to kick, millions of people off their health care and I'm going to get rid of US aid and they've already said 600,000 people have died because of the US aid cuts because they're not getting fed and they're not getting whatever they need to survive. Like that's an immediate consequence of a policy choice that has caused a lot of people to die. Like, of course Trump fucking doesn't give a fuck about killing some dumb whore that he raped. Like he they probably get a kick out of the suffering. I don't know. Um like I've been thinking about the weird Robin Leach connection. I'm like, what the fuck? What has Robin Leach got to do with all this? Like, and I don't know. I guess he's sort of a product of that Reagan, like Lifestyles of the Rich and Famous came on during the Reagan era, the 80s. It's totally a product of like the yuppie 80s. And it is sort of like propaganda for wealth inequality. It's sort of a way of taunting poor people by saying, "Oh, isn't, you're on your fat ass watching this on TV in the middle of nowhere, smoking, drinking, killing yourself with bad, cheap, just like what we feed you people. But look how great all of these people's lives are. This is entertainment for you. We're going to entertain you by flaunting, like, oh my God, look at Roger Moore's, Hawaiian villa or whatever the hell it is. Look at Trump Taj Mahal or Elizabeth Taylor's fucking vacation home, private jets. And then those things sort of came back. There was a show on VH1. What the hell was it called? It was basically like Lifestyles of the Rich and Famous again. It was an Australian guy. For some reason, Australian accent is the sound of crass ultra wealth. Lifestyles. We're so fucking rich. Listen to us. We've got more money than you could possibly imagine, you poor broke piece of shit. Go fuck yourself. Why don't you go eat some more White Castle, piggy? I'll be eating caviar. I'll be doing cocaine off a high-priced hooker's ass from my privately branded helicopter. I'm flying to my luxurious estate in the Hamptons to ritualistically sacrifice children. Don't you wish you could get invited to this party? If you're lucky, we would victimize you. You wish you could get slaughtered by us in our torture chambers. That's what Australian accent says to me. Child murder. Strangling a teenage sex slave to death for to get an erection. I haven't got an erection since I killed that 7-year-old. It's dark, people. What was Woody Allen doing? Why are there 12,000 emails about pizza? Why do they love pizza so much and grape soda? It's like a child's birthday party. They're really into the pizza and grape soda. Who'd have thought? Who'd have thought Hillary Clinton loved pizza so much? I mean, we know Biden likes ice cream. Robin Leach, I'm coming with the grape soda, boys. More fabulous adventures. Champagne wishes. I need to dismember a small child. I need to blow off some steam. I mean, we do live on some kind of prison planet that mass produces suffering. They seem to feed on our suffering somehow. They have some kind of, is it aliens? Are we an alien ant farm? And they're just like holding the magnifying glass up to our lives. That's kind of what it feels. Are we just Sims being tortured by some kind of sadistic teenager with the game? Somebody get a responsible child playing the simulation. Get this sadistic fucking bully off the keyboard. We need a responsible God. We need a caring, merciful God. A nurturing God. We live in a universe that is ruled by power and force and cheating. What did the guy say? He said, if game theory is like you have to cheat to win. If you don't cheat, you won't win. You have to take every advantage you can to win. Why didn't Kane just stuff the ballot boxes? He's rich enough. He couldn't buy the election like Elon Musk. See, that's the only thing that's like not believable. I mean, I guess there's been plenty of rich guys who ran for office, but the thing that seemed not believable about Citizen Kane is that he didn't win. When I watch it now, it's just like he would win. If he ran today, he would win because he's famous. The other guy's just a fucking politician. Like, so what that he cheated on his wife? Nobody cares. Unless you're Bill Clinton, nobody cares. Unless you're a Democrat. Literally, they don't care. Do whatever the fuck you want to your wife. Be gay, have gay, slaughter children. Ritualistically, sexually abuse children and torture them to death. They literally don't care. Unless you're a Democrat. See, if Citizen Kane would have been more realistic if Charles Foster Kane like ritualistically tortured children. They left that part of the movie out. What's in the Charles Foster Kane files? In the emails. He just rips his Declaration of Principles right up. That's a little bit on the nose, I'd say. I guess it's the beats in that movie are very compressed. You can see every change in the character and his climb to being the sort of dehumanized monster that he becomes. And you can see why, Susan breaks away from him. She's able to wrest her life back. She's not just going to be his. He can't control the people. He can't control the critics or the public opinion anymore, but he can control her. And so she says, fuck you. And she leaves, but it sort of breaks her in a way. She becomes this sort of like washed up, raspy nightclub owner, but I don't know. It's part of the sauce of the movie, part of the flavor of the movie is, the expression of the writing and stuff. And so what was I saying about Epstein files? Oh, God. I mean, it seems like people aren't even talking about it at this point. I mean, I've been pretty vocal about it. What's the newest thing today? Apparently, Elon Musk, they're going to question him. They banned Twitter in France or something, I think. They care about their society over there, I guess. They care about the mental well-being of their population, not like the United States. They just want to exploit us until we're no longer useful for them. Well, we're coming to a point in human history where for the first time we will be obsolete. They will once they have AI labor, which replaces the working class, quote unquote, there will be no power in organization. The only power in labor unions is that they're labor unions. They need the labor, and so the workers finally get the courage to unify against their owners, basically, and argue for some very reasonable compensations. Otherwise, it's just going to go to Charles Foster Kane and he's going to buy a bunch of fucking statues that he's going to keep in crates. That's wealth accumulation. That's wealth inequality. That's what drives these greedy fucking billionaires. Elon Musk's rosebud, his racist dad or whatever. We're lucky Charles Foster Kane wasn't really a racist. There's some interesting duende in the movie. There are black actors in the movie. They're usually musicians. The scene where they sing the song about Charles Foster Kane is kind of where the movie goes off the rails. That's the movie where his ego kind of goes berserk. And they bring in this kind of like voodoo band. So there's not really a whole. I mean, there are some. There are some black actors in Citizen Kane, but they don't really have any speaking lines. I don't think they sing and whatnot. Well, he directed the Voodoo Macbeth in Harlem. That was like one of his first big successes. So I was kind of curious about that. Orson Welles does seem like a hipster in a way in the 40s, like he was probably listening to jazz and shit. I don't know. What was I saying about the Epstein files? Well, one of the things that really blows my mind is the idea that he started some kind of fucking Reddit, like Ghislaine Maxwell was one of the like top Reddit commenters, and I don't know if Epstein started 4chan. He was somehow there's certain things that he was involved with kind of early on, like 4chan. I think he told the guy who started it, like that something about R. Paul or something. He was like sort of indirectly responsible for them starting this thing, which actually became like the alt-right movement. Like it sort of happened basically because Epstein suggested to the guy or probably funded the guy, and that's kind of spooky to think that a couple of people have that kind of power, or I don't know, is that foresight? Like why is it significant that Ghislaine Maxwell is like a Reddit commenter? Like was she on fucking Tumblr? Like why was Reddit like this crux point of influence? And how the fuck did they know that? I mean, did they just know that it was like where they were going to consolidate their sort of like inappropriate, like fascists enabling, this is not a child's room, by the way. I know it looks that way, but this is not a child's room, okay? This is a 25-year-old's room, believe it or not. And that is, whatever. It is what it is. Like, is it because of who they were that they were able to get this out? Is that the reason, one of the reasons why Reddit ascended to become the front page of the internet? Is that one of the reasons why 4chan was sort of this breeding ground of whatever the fuck, Groyper, incel, alt-right, whatever, the whole shebang-a-bang of like toxic right-wing pipeline for men? Like I said, I never spent time on those websites, particularly not in the 2010s. I was always kind of suspicious of, but I mean, particularly Reddit. I didn't start to get on Reddit personally until like a few years ago because it just became the de facto website for kind of just like answers to questions in a way. Reddit was like where you could get, it just became like the community message board of the internet in a way that was like not censored. It's not Facebook. It's sort of anonymous. Like you don't have a fucking profile picture or any shit like that. Like it's more like the old internet. But I was always the reputation of it in the 2010s, I think, was that it was more edge lord a little bit. Like I said, I wasn't really on it, but my sense of it was like, ooh, Reddit gross. I don't trust it. I don't like it. I don't know what it is really, but it's only in the past few years that I'm not really on Reddit like religiously, but it was sort of my Twitter replacement when I quit Twitter. It was like a place to go for just, conversation on topics of interest, commonplace wisdom, people's actual opinions, word of mouth, basically, in a way. You could get, like for instance, when I wanted to get my phone, I went on Reddit and asked, hey, does anybody know if they're going to do a fucking Cricket iPhone deal? Is it going to come back? It just ended. Is it going to come back? And literally a guy on Reddit said, yeah, it's coming back the 9th. And I was like, how the fuck do you know? He's like, I work there. And he was right. It did come back the 9th. That's what Reddit is good for to me. I don't get on Reddit to like, confer with my white supremacist brotherhood or whatever, which some people do, I think, or they did. I don't know. Wasn't that what Reddit was? I thought it was some kind of like dark. It wasn't like the dark web, but it was like, sort of like a clean version of that for like the regular internet. At least that's what 4chan was. And Reddit was sort of like a softer version of 4chan. 4chan was like the dark web on like the regular internet where like you'd see like inappropriate shit. The internet used to be more unregulated. You would see just like wild lemon party. Do yourself a favor and don't ever look at Lemon Party. But I imagine for people my age generation, Lemon Party was like formative. If you know, you know. Let's just say that's why these rich people talk in code. Lemon Party is sort of Epstein coded. So's Tub Girl, for that matter. Don't ever look at Tub Girl. Now it feels like Tub Girl's the president. Literally, like Lemon Party and Tub Girl are like in the White House. It feels like our politics like work the same way. Like that's sort of like jump scare with the internet. And trolling is sort of like a jump scare, and people want the jump scare. It makes them feel something. It touches us on a but it's dark. It's not a fun, it's traumatizing. It's like a little trauma to see Tub Girl. It's like, ooh, I shouldn't have ever had to see that. No human being should ever have to see Tub Girl or Lemon Party. I bet the Epstein files are full of lemon parties. Let's just say that. Hopefully no Tub Girls. I hope to God there's no Tub Girls in the Lemon Party Epstein files. But Lemon Party, yeah, I'm sure there's a lot of lemon. Trump was probably at the Lemon Party. So I have been clip farming. My last round of clip farming about half my videos got through on YouTube. I do have one video that's got almost 7,000 views on TikTok. It's the jump scare video. People probably didn't watch, but my last stream, I was talking about Wexner and the curtain fell, and it scared the shit out of me. And of course, it's the most popular video I've ever had because it's like just morons on the internet think, "Oh my god, they got sound cannons. They got some kind of Jewish space laser that fucking made his curtain fall down." Because he talked about Epstein. Hillary. There was one guy who commented on it, "That's Bill Clinton outside your window." It's like, dude, you can't be serious. There's no way you believe that. You think Bill Clinton or somebody that works for Bill Clinton is like out to get me because I was talking about Les Wexner and Epstein. Like, okay, pal. Clintons are going to testify. I'm cheersing to that. I don't think he's got it. I don't think he's got anything to hide. He's lied before. We all know it, right? Clinton's lied under oath before. Okay, it's not a big deal to Slick Willie. He'll be fine lying straight to Congress's face about the island and the pizza and the grape soda. He will be fucking have no problem with that. So, I am going to probably get off pretty soon, even though I'm just on fire with social criticism right now. Just kidding. We're getting to the bottom of things. It's just endless. The bottom is endless. Yeah, so Hillary and Bill are going to testify. They should. I don't think they're going to get busted or anything. But they should clear their names. You know, tell them exactly why you went to Africa with Chris Tucker and Bill Gates to help the children with Oprah. All the best people. All the, the greatest human beings of our age. Bono. George Clooney. People who care. These people aren't eating children. They're saving children. They're vaccinating children. What's wrong with that, you anti-science freaks? I don't know. Is this a waste of my life? Am I wasting my life here? Just pointlessly taking apart the fucking hypocrisies of our societies. Yeah, so I don't, do I think Mira Nair is like part of like some kind of fucking international pedophile circle? Like, not really. Just because she was at Epstein's townhouse, like, hey, if you had an island, look, if I had a 747 that was my personal private jet full of video games and shit, kombucha, in an island that was literally climate perfect, and you could go there and stay for free, you would probably, we'd probably email. You'd probably be emailing me. I mean, not to defend it, but I do think that there's like, not everybody who was ever mentioned in one of the guy's emails, like, is necessarily, a satanic pedophile, like mutilator of babies, necessarily. And so, I think that there is more truth and it's deeper than maybe I thought. Uh, but I also think people are going a little wild with, like Mamdani is Epstein's kid. Like, come on, you're out of your fucking mind. Get real. He just opened the David Dinkins. He's on our side, okay? Even if he is a nepo baby, we have a nepo city. We should have a nepo mayor. That's all we can do. They're not going to elect like a regular person. There aren't any. They don't have the social media clout. So he's kind of the perfect guy for the time, for the moment. Well, okay, so one of the stories was apparently like 15 people died in the because it has been fucking really cold recently, right? I mean, this weekend it was literally sub-zero, or it was zero. It felt sub-zero. And so like 15 people froze to death. And there are people sleeping outside everywhere. It is fucking insane. They're under tons of blankets and stuff. Some of them are cardboard or whatever, but it's like it's still fucking like you will freeze to death. That's my understanding of it, right? Like if, I mean if it's under 20 degrees, even if it's under freezing, I mean that's why it's called freezing. But especially like if it's under 20 degrees and it's fucking snow outside, like I don't care how many blankets you have, like maybe if you had some kind of fucking sleeping bag that was super Gore-Tex or whatever. But like the science of it says like you will freeze to death and die. And so I don't know. It's one of these things like people are waiting for Mamdani to fail. The New York Post, a lot of these right wing weaponized kind of newspapers are going to go. We were in the honeymoon period, right? Like he's kind of ahead of the game with social media and all of the hipster people like him. They think, the hipster people are sort of cult like, they're looking for like a savior because we all feel so hopeless and kind of doom seeing that, these people like Bernie, people like Mamdani have these kind of like messianic qualities where it's like, oh my God, they're just going to come in and give us all free health care and free childcare and free buses and what they have in Europe. And, or whatever in other developed countries. And so we've been in a honeymoon period. Whereas, like now, Mamdani's actually the fucking mayor. He's actually having to make policy choices, and like they're gonna really slime him every fucking chance they get. I mean, look what they do to Clinton. Look what they do to Obama. They just slime people. Look what they do to Trump. Poor Trump. He's very unfairly treated. In a certain way, I think that's just the nature of being a politician. It's like half the people are going to come after you. And, I think Biden's approval rating was like 40%. Like, if he had a more dynamic, vivacious presence, it probably would have been a lot higher. But it's hard to maintain, I think, a positive. And there's a lot of things that are not under your control. Now, I mean, did he kill a bunch of people? Because so the idea, right, is he didn't force people off the streets because it's looked on as more compassionate or humane to not force people into shelters if they don't want to go there. They're scared. The shelter's a scary place. They don't want to be there. They want to take their chances outside. He didn't want to force them into the shelters. So they died. Is that a result of, somebody called it suicidal empathy? That's like probably one of Elon Musk's favorite terms. Suicidal empathy is like what the West, that's like wokeness, is like suicidal empathy. It's like we're so empathetic, we're like self-destructive. We're going to kill Western civilization because we're so empathetic to immigrants or, open borders. Uh, Suicidal empathy. Mamdani killed these homeless people because he was so empathetic. Who knows? I mean, I don't know. What last time it was that cold outside, did people die? Let's ask Grok real fast. Okay, well, this is for. Let's see this. How many people died in 2016 blizzard in New York City? 3 to 6 storm-related death, primarily caused by heart attacks by shoveling snow. Let me see how many people froze to death. Maybe it wasn't as cold then. How many people froze to death in New York City in 2025? Okay, let's see. How many people froze to death under Eric Adams? Can you tell me that? Okay. I mean, the only information and this is indicative of why AI sucks. The only information I'm getting is all about the shit that just happened. Meaning, like, they probably didn't even, like, I don't know, keep track of this or something before. I just keep getting, in February 26th, 16 people died outside, so it's like, this may have been something that just, like, hasn't happened in a long time. They couldn't necessarily have predicted it. They couldn't have seen it coming. I mean, is that a fucking policy failure? It's not good. It's real bad. But I don't know. That's part of having that responsibility. And I don't know. Is he learning on the job? Who the fuck knows? He's got a whole, like, he's got a whole, like, cabinet of fucking people that are helping him. And so I'm assuming that he's a smart guy. I'm sure he has really smart people who want to be a part of what he's doing. And so, they are probably staffed in such a way that they're prepared to handle significant challenges, whatever comes up, even if he is. I mean, there was the press conference where he was talking about, what is there, a $12 billion deficit? And he seemed kind of shook. He seemed like really surprised that Eric Adams would do this to him. Surprise, surprise. Dirtbag Eric Adams. Left him holding the bag on the way out the door. But Mamdani basically just blamed the whole thing on Eric Adams. It was all just about Eric Adams. This is his fault and blah, blah, blah. He didn't tell us about this. We are fucking. And he seemed really surprised, which honestly is not a great look for the mayor. And blaming the last mayor also is like, okay, maybe he did do it, but like, they should have known if there was a $12 billion deficit. And like, I mean, isn't that just part of New York? I mean, hasn't been running on a deficit. I mean, that's part of like, I mean, the federal government runs on a huge deficit. Like, I don't know. That money comes from some fucking place. Does the federal government step in? It comes from somewhere. Like the city keeps going. In a certain way, all these debts are meaningless, imaginary bullshit anyway. And so I don't know if it is as alarming as he's making it sound, but like that's his job. His job is to fucking fix it. Like you don't need to, you shouldn't be that surprised. Like it's fucking Eric Adams. Like hard to believe that guy was the fucking mayor at all. We lived through this weirdo time where Eric Adams was like this kind of crooked, going to Turkey and hanging out with Diddy and just weird guy. You'd think it'd be harder to get that job of mayor of New York. But, they're all kind of fucking freaky, if you ask me. Look at Ed Koch, look at Abe Beam, or look at, Jimmy Walker, look at LaGuardia, Little Short King. Look at Giuliani, for Christ's sake, Mr. Landscaping, Mr. Four Seasons Landscaping. Like, look at de Blasio. I mean, Bloomberg was about the most, I don't know, like, uneccentric. They're all kind of eccentric. Look at Sliwa. I mean, he wasn't the mayor, or like the rent is too damn high guy. Like the New York mayoral race is kind of a circus. It does attract freaky people. And rightly so. That's what we love about it. And so I don't know. Mom Donnie will probably be like Jimmy Carter or something. There will probably be hits. I don't know. There'll be highs and lows. There'll be hits and misses, like with anybody. A lot of that is up to, but I think he's got a strong, compass, and he's a smart guy, and he sort of knows what he's talking about as much as anybody else. He was an assemblyman for what, like a few years. He's been a state assemblyman since like 2020 or something. Like, it's not like he just went from being a SoundCloud rapper to being the mayor. Like, he's had some experience. Like, he's not completely just like, it's not like he went from being fucking a gopher on the set to being mayor. Like, he's been in the political game for a few years. And so I'm sure he's learned the playbook, the socialist. But there's probably a lot of people out there who want to sabotage him. And like, that's what you see with these Epstein files and like QAnon and Reddit is like if a couple of people that powerful decide that they want to push something, like look at that. It changed our whole society. This is why there's all this like incel alt-right. This is something I talk about constantly on my YouTube page and my stream is YouTube clearly has some kind of right-wing bias. They push a lot of content on you that like you're absolutely not interested in because they want to get you. Even fucking Bill Maher. I think Bill Maher is a goddamn plant, frankly. Like, I think they give him shit to say. I think he's probably compromised, right? He's probably in the fucking honeypot. I mean, this was the big story that I saw, right? I didn't even see this reported anywhere else. It was in the Daily Mail. Was Epstein is a KGB funded like operative. Like the KGB uses him as like a honeypot. This is one of their favorite things to do, right? Putin, because all these politicians want to get their dick sucked. And so they all fall for it, where they get lured to the island or whatever. Trump supposedly, right, there's a P tape in the Steele dossier that we've never seen. But I'm sure there's a lot of stuff on Trump. There's probably all kind of video of him doing God knows what. But they bribe these guys with women and then they film them. and then they fucking use it to blackmail them to get them to say whatever they want so they don't ruin their careers or their lives or whatever. And that's their whole fucking. I mean, Woody was on Club Random. Bill Maher has been like an outspoken. There's no reason. There's nothing to account for why Bill Maher is as famous as he is. There's no reason Bill Maher should be that famous, other than just like he's pushed on us. He gets a lot of platforming and publicity, and that includes from YouTube. I mean, Jesus Christ, YouTube loves Club Random. It's like, yeah, I get it. He's already famous, but Jesus Christ. Club Random, he is terrible. He repeats the same shit over and over again. He never really has much. Maybe 10% of what he says is interesting. And 90% of it is him repeating the same shit about Trump is peaceful. Trump hates war. I hate the woke kids. These kids don't want to learn anything. I've never been married. You know it. It's the familiar Bill Maher shit. And I don't know if this exposes those fucking people. Like I was saying before, we're at a unique point in human history where the labor class is going to have no, the way our society is organized, right? Where it's like rich people use us as labor, they subjugate us, master and slave. They breed goyim. And this is something I wanted to get into because this is kind of an interesting aspect. And maybe it's just Twitter, but it seems like the Epstein files are a lot of Christian people's first awareness of like the term goyim, which I think I heard about it when I was younger. But the idea is goyim is sort of like a slang term for that Jewish people use for Gentiles, that it means cattle, right? And so in the Epstein files, there's a few different references to condescending, dismissive ways of referring to white people, Gentiles, as goyim. We're cattle. That's for the goyim. I don't wait in line. That's for the goyim. I don't fly commercial. That's for the goyim. I don't work. That's for the goyim. I make my money, selling short stocks or insider trading, working for a living, working for an hourly wage. That's for the goyim. And so this is a lot of, I think there was sort of a lid on this, or at least it wasn't something that was highly publicized, but like, I think for some white people, it seems like this is their first awareness that like they are referred to in this way. There is a slur for them. In fact, a disparaging, it's also more just about like, this is how they view you. Our society, they use you as labor to do the hard stuff. The white people are, and when you look at America, it is kind of organized that way. The country is basically a big fucking farm of Gentiles that like do a bunch of dumb manual labor. They drink, they eat bad food. They're fed like livestock, and they're organized mentally, watch the football game, get in your car, drive to work, a punishing amount of hours because like Jesus said so. Be meek, be humble, have a good attitude, be a team player, be energetic, be positive, be social. Don't ask questions, just root for the team and drink and shut up and go to work. And like, we'll be on our private jets having sex with children. We'll be kidnapping the sexual partners of our choice and dragging them to our private island to you know, have non-consensual sexual relations, basically. And these people will tolerate being lied to. They'll tolerate being manipulated. They'll tolerate anything Trump wants to do, any lie Trump wants to tell them. But I think the moment that they feel condescended to, in the moment that you make it clear that you think you're better than them, and like, oh, this actually is a scheme, Israel, in a bigger way, that's the relationship that Israel has to the United States, right? Is they sort of use us to bolster their own. They manipulate the resources that the United States has. The United States economy, the war fucking machine, the entertainment industry, whatever it is, religion, wrestling, I'm sure is involved somehow. Wrestling is like the lowest shit. That's like the slop for the real dumb goy, the complete redneck white trash. And the idea, right, that Ghislaine and Epstein think they're better. Oh, you guys, you're not invited. The party is all Jewish people. We are genetically superior. We have super brain. We're the smartest people on earth. We're God's chosen people. Goys are not invited. Goys are they're they are their souls are not as sophisticated as ours. They're lesser beings. They're lesser kind of spiritual entities, in addition to being intellectually inferior. And there's a friction there, certainly, that feels like it's kind of erupting, certain secrets, certain attitudes. I mean, this is why they bought TikTok, right? Was because there was so much pro Hamas content on there. The Jews had to buy it. Oracle, Larry Ellison, one of the big Jews, like Larry David would say. Big Jew. Big Jew, Larry Ellison, and his son, and Barry Weiss. Gee, what a coincidence. They took over all of the media in the last. Zuckerberg, big Jew. Now watch this whole clothing rack will fall on me or something. The desk will collapse. The Jewish space lasers are going to. So it doesn't look good. I mean, it looks kind of obvious what they're doing. They fired Colbert, a nice Catholic boy. Jimmy Kimmel, also Catholic. Fallon, what's Fallon? He sold his soul a long time ago. He definitely has no soul. Was he on the island? He was at the Diddy party, I think. They had the island. That's for the ultra elite get to go to the island. But, the lower echelons, they get to the Diddy party. Even the child pedo rings are segregated. Well, I mean, that was something Trump said in the emails, right? Or Epstein said about Trump. He said, don't bring any African American women. Trump doesn't like them. I mean, Jesus Christ. Can't we all just get along? Like, it definitely doesn't feel good to be like manipulated, condescended to, because I watched a little of this interview with Epstein, right? That was part of the files, was like there's some interview between him and Steve Bannon. And a lot of people, it's the first time I've ever heard Epstein speak, right? And a lot of what he says is just kind of like, I don't know, doesn't seem to add up to anything definitive. He kind of dances around, and I don't, it wasn't like some mind-blowingly, like wise, like it's just weird people's reaction to Epstein, because like there is sort of a cult of like adulation a little bit. I mean, maybe that's just Twitter, but like, there's people. I think one of the advantages that the story had was that you hadn't heard Epstein's voice. People thought Epstein was going to sound like this fucking Chad or something. They thought he was going to have like this super deep voice because all they'd seen is pictures of him. They never actually heard him talk. They didn't realize he sounds just like Woody Allen because they basically grew up in the same place. They basically both grew up in Midwood or like the flatlands of Brooklyn where I lived. Woody Allen grew up like a couple blocks from where I lived in Midwood. And Epstein is from like Flatbush or something like that. Where Bernie Sanders is from, where a lot of the Jewish people moved from fucking, the shtetl or whatever, from persecution in Europe and Russia, right? A lot of them are from Russia. They're Ashkenazi or whatever. I don't know. There's a whole tribalism about that, and it's genetic, it's eugenics. It's like they want to protect their genetics, unlike, they want to preserve like whatever the hell genetic encryption they have because it does like have a lot of cultural influence. And so I think people were shocked and kind of got the ick. This is how sick people are. They see Epstein. It's like there is this weird like attraction that people have to him or something. And like he's some kind of, ladies man or something. It's like he kidnapped these people. And he had this great lifestyle. He's flying on his jet and he's a billionaire. He's got an island and a townhouse and look at him, his fucking big, look at him. He's kind of got a manly face. And then you hear him talk and you're like, this guy sounds like a dweeb. And so I think it was like a letdown for a lot of people who were hoping that Epstein was going to be some kind of like, Andrew Tate or something. He was going to be some kind of like manosphere influencer. People are going to watch this interview and be like, yeah, I'm taking notes. I'm learning from Epstein. He had some smart shit to say about finance and math and science. And he had all these influential friends, Noam Chomsky. How many emails are there? Is there 12,000 emails between Epstein and Noam Chomsky? Where did they like to get sushi? Kind of disappointing. Not that I've never really been a big Chomsky guy personally. He's okay. A lot of shit he said never really added up for me, frankly. I never really was like an acolyte of Noam Chomsky, really. I've listened to a good amount of interviews from him. I think he was like not wild about Kamala and the fucking, he was sort of not wild about the Ukraine situation. He was sort of pro-Russia, I think. But I was never really a big Chomsky guy. The fact that he's a plant, not really that big of a surprise to me. He went to fucking Harvard or MIT or whatever, like fuck Chomsky. Could care less. Put him in jail. Throw him in jail with Trump and fucking all of them. And the Clintons, Bill Gates, and Woody. Throw them all in fucking Rikers. Fuck Guantanamo Bay. They got to be in Rikers. They got to be with the general population. They got to know what it's like for us, for the Goyim. Let's show them what it's like for the Goyim. Show them what our hard knock life. It's not all fucking champagne wishes and caviar dreams out here. It's Chipotle and no health insurance. Ganglion cysts. It's called having tooth abscesses and ganglion cysts. That's what the lifestyle of the broke bohemians about. I do want to end with this, and this might sound controversial. This might sound insane. Maybe I shouldn't even, I don't know. But I don't know. I had that whole year, I lived in Midwood for a couple years, right? And it sort of was this weird situation that I found myself in. I guess I should have tried harder to get out of it, maybe. It didn't seem that bad, and in certain ways it wasn't that bad, and, like, maybe I am being, I don't know. It's just culture shock in a certain way. But, maybe I would have been better off if I could have just lived in Midwood full time rather than going back and forth. But in any case, it felt to me, it weirdly coincided with, like, everything that happened October 7th, right? And so, I'm a Catholic. I'm from Columbus, Ohio. I wasn't really around Jewish people growing up. I've had Jewish friends, but, like, suddenly I found myself, like, in a fucking Jewish culture. Not that I was that involved. It was more kind of just like peripheral as I went to the fucking train and whatnot. But, they're all Orthodox. They all have this thing. People are constantly asking me if I was Jewish, right? Are you Jewish? Are you Jewish? We want to do a mitzvah. We got the mitzvah tank. There's a big menorah. Not that I had a problem. Like, I'm open minded. I usually look at these things as like opportunities for just like, learning or whatever, understanding. And I don't want to judge anybody based on like what religion they are or anything. And I'm not. Like, I don't have any problem. I'm saying, but we're living in a very complicated time for this issue, right? Where it's like there's things that are sort of right in our face about Israel. Maybe it was a ritualistic sacrifice, the whole Gaza thing. Maybe they did want to kill a bunch of fucking children, not because they're Jewish. Maybe they are just like some kind of fucking dark, determined force that's taken advantage of the religion. And Netanyahu is certainly kind of his own Nazi. He's not really like Mr. Every man Jewish person. He doesn't represent everybody's opinion. And what they did, there are a lot of people that disagree with it who are not Woody Allen apologists. And so, like, I don't want to like stereotype anybody or be prejudiced or anything like that. But you know how sometimes, like in a movie or something, they'll use like a surrogate to sort of like tell the story of something that was going on. Like, for instance, fuck, I don't know. I feel like they do this a lot with Vietnam or something. It's like it's a movie about, football or something, but it's like it's really about, it was their way of dealing with Vietnam or something. It's like they use it as a proxy, not necessarily even like a metaphor, but just like it felt to me like I don't know, like I identify with Jewish culture more. I feel like I'm um not that, I mean, I think everybody does. It's like Jewish culture is a big part of our culture in general. That's why people are suspicious of it. They're like, what are they? Why did they have so much influence? Why is Larry David and Spielberg and Hollywood is Jewish and the New York Times is Jewish? And why do they have a disproportionate influence in what we think and what we see and what we laugh at? What did somebody, I mean, this is really anti Semitic. Somebody said, don't get a TV. It's like having a Jew in your living room. That's a meme I think I probably saw on Twitter or something. I don't use the word Jew. I do feel like the word Jew is a slur. If you're a Gentile, you can't really say Jew. You can't be like, he's a Jew. It just sounds too, it's like saying black. Like, I don't say black, he's a black. Like, you don't say Jew. It's just too, so we try to be sensitive. We try to not be anti Semitic. And to be honest, Jewish people have been really good to me in a lot of ways. I mean, they let me live there, and uh, Jewish people have been very friendly to me, actually, and appreciative. I see eye to eye with them a lot more in certain ways. And a lot of these, like Citizen Kane, he's got a Jewish guy. Bernstein, right, is his general manager. That's often the case. Like Wolf of Wall Street, he's got a Jewish guy. Jonah Hill, right? It's like they have always got a Jewish guy. Ulysses, it's Bloom and Stephen, right? Half the story is the Jewish guy. It's a Catholic, it's an Irish Catholic guy and a Jewish guy. Joyce felt that was important, felt that was half the story. And in a certain way, Jesus was Jewish. Christianity is an extension of Judaism in a certain way. It's different, the attitudes that they're molding in people, right? Jewish people it's like Old Testament. It's eye for an eye, whatever. It's different. Christianity, it's all about mercy and turning the other cheek, basically being submissive in a lot of ways. And so they're breeding that into people for some reason. But it is almost like a pact. They're working in conjunction. The Christian conservatives and the Zionists are working together to realize their apocalyptic, prophecy. And for some reason, they have to murder children or cause wars or kill a bunch of people, genocide Palestinians to do that. That's part of the fun or something for them. I don't know. Or, best case scenario, it's a dirty job. And so they kind of have to become bad people. Like if you're the landlord, if you're daddy, if you're a Republican, you got to if you're a CEO, if you're the fucking boss, if you're the alpha predator of like the fucking planet, you got to do shit. You got to kill people. You got to fire people. You got to break people's hearts. You got to eat babies. Apparently, that's part of the training or something. Citizen Kane, his parents send him away to all these boarding schools to like prepare him to be wealthy and influential because they can't do it. They don't think. He has to get a European education or something. Go to boarding school, private school. Fellow who was my class, fellow who taught me that is now the president of Venezuela. I heard this thing, Jesus is the anointed one, but Jesus is like a translation of Josh, and anointed one kind of just means like oily, like he's got oil. And so Jesus is kind of a translation. If you translate it to modern times, it'd be oily Josh. Oily Josh is a live streamer with a lot of socialistic opinions. He's a commie. He's an anarchist. There's a lot Citizen Kane doesn't really talk about World War I or the 20s, or I don't know, the way it portrays that stuff isn't necessarily at the forefront of popular consciousness of how those decades were, maybe. So it's hard to pinpoint where they are in the story at certain points, maybe, or what year it is. But no, I'm not trying to like appropriate Jewish identity or something. I know I'll never be Jewish, okay? As much as I want to be one of God's chosen people, I know I'm not in the club. I'm just a gross Catholic. I'm just like a runt of a mongrel of like a goyim chattel piece of shit. White trash is what Epstein called it. You're white trash. You can't come. I'm a poor white boy. I'm poor white trash. I'm fine with that, I guess. But we got blamed for everything America did. We took the bag for the last 10 years. Well, you know, um, so I don't know. It's a fucking crazy time, and Jewish people are in like the crosshairs in a lot of ways. And I think Israel does like a lot of fucking like what kind of spell do they have Quentin Tarantino under? What the fuck do they have on Tarantino? Did they just give him all of the foot porn that he could ever want? Like, how did they get Tarantino to be so into Israel? I don't really get it. They must have some really bad compromat on Tarantino. But in any case, I feel like my time in Midwood was like a proxy experience for, I don't know. In one of my poems, I call it my dark research kibitz. It was sort of just like, because it just was not, it's just, nothing against those people or anything. They have the right to be private and live their lives, and their neighborhood is like, it's their space. But it was also just like not, it was grim, you know, just the options of like what there is to eat. It's meant to be kind of like, or I don't know, it's just, it's its own world. It's very, because it's in New York, you'd think it would be, I don't know, a little more assimilated to like modern society or something, but it's like, it's weirdly just hermetic, it's like it doesn't feel like there is, it's like hidden. It's hidden right there in the middle of Brooklyn. It's like it's like going to fucking, you know, back in time or something in certain ways. On the Shabbos, it's like everybody is it's he used to call it zombie day because literally you go outside on a Saturday and it's just like empty, like tumbleweed empty. And it's kind of spooky. But I wish there wasn't that sense that like they're better than us or they are, I think Epstein in particular represents just this kind of like insatiable appetite and like lack of, or I don't, lack of scruples, lack of morals, lack of, empathy or feelings. Like, how could you do this stuff? How could you cause people this pain? And to do it at a mass scale, is really what we're seeing. When they own the McGraw-Hill textbooks, Ghislaine Maxwell's dad or whatever worked for Mossad, and they wanna decide what the white people think and believe and control them with sports or movies or sitcoms or cheap entertainment. Even the Beatles, right, had Brian Epstein. Elvis. I mean, there were Jewish guys in the Memphis Mafia. The Colonel wasn't Jewish, I don't think. How did Elvis get away with it? Um, he has sort of a Jewish quality in a way, Elvis. Or I think there's rumor. I don't know. There's a lot of rumors about what Elvis is. He's like Native American. He's a gypsy. He's this, that. Um, he's Jewish. So it's like, I don't know. We all just want to, especially working in their entertainment business, not necessarily let like Jewish people have like, some kind of magic. Oh, you're Jewish? Come on in. We're going to, put you right to the front. Like, I don't think it works that way. Jewish people usually are very smart and talented, or, or like, they have some kind of weird confidence or something, some kind of riz, some kind of, swaggy, um, I don't know. Maybe it's just, is this just an internet thing? Is this just an obsession of being too online? To me, it's also like just a part. I mean, New York City is you know, there's a million plus Jewish people here. And so, you know, it's is it the most Jewish people in any place on earth? It might be. And I'm not saying that as a bad thing. I'm just saying it's like it is part of the culture here. And so it's like you you come, you know, up front with it. You come up to it. And so it's like, I lived in Midwood. I saw a lot of stuff I probably wouldn't have seen. Nothing bad, but just like seeing another culture, or being in, entertainment shit, or being in the arts, or being in, whatever. You meet nice people and you try to do your best, you know? Like I said, they've been pretty nice to me. Why is that? Is that some kind of Jewish conspiracy? Is that why they're so nice to me? Is that some kind of Zionism or something? Is that some kind of genocide tactic? They want to kill Palestinians, so they're nice to me? They want to get me on the island? I mean, a lot of the entertainment stuff in the mass media that I grew up with is like part of the shit that I use as my, like Jewish culture, Jewish comedians. Um, I'm trying to think of examples. Shit like, maybe Seinfeld, or I don't know, Woody Allen movies. My Dinner with Andre, both Jews. Silver Jews, Bob Dylan, Charles Reznikoff. John Cocteau Jewish? I think so. Why does it matter? Does it? It doesn't. Does it? Does it matter? Is it a unique situation where people are like overly sensitive about it, overly touchy about it, overly looking for? I mean, Herman Mankiewicz, the guy who wrote Citizen Kane, Jewish. Orson Welles, I don't think was Jewish, but he needed a Jewish guy to, the guys that wrote Casablanca were Jewish. Jerry Lewis. But it's only one aspect. There's a lot of things that are not Jewish too. So, uh, I don't know. It does seem like hella suspicious that Larry Epstein, or Larry Ellison, pardon me, Freudian slip. Larry Epstein and Woody Epstein and Barry Weiss Epstein. Larry Ellison bought TikTok. His kid wants to buy all these movie studios, Paramount, Warner Brothers Discovery. Barry Weiss taking over CBS News. They were talking about she wants to platform Alan Dershowitz. Charismatic voices like Alan Dershowitz. It's like, yeah, you got your finger on the pulse of what people want. Charismatic voices like Alan Dershowitz. That doesn't feel like you're trying to push an agenda on people or anything. He wasn't, like, on the island and, you know, a lot of these guys are Harvard professors. It's shocking how many fucking Harvard people. Way more than Columbia, I think. Columbia should, use that in their recruitment brochures. Not as implicated in the Epstein files as Harvard. Harvard is all over the Epstein files. He's rich. When you're rich, people just want to let believe whatever that you are. They just want to believe, like, oh yeah, this guy's great. He's got a private jet. He's got an island. He must deserve it. There's no way he's like a child torturing satanic leader of a worldwide pedophile ring or anything. There's no way that's how rich, rich people don't make their money doing bad things. They're just better than us. Usually the way it works is somebody has an idea and then another person with business savvy comes in and takes it and makes a bunch of money off of it. That's what I've seen. That McDonald's movie, The Owner, that's what it's like. McDonald's, these two guys started the restaurant, and then Ray Kroc comes in, who had nothing to do with it, steals the idea, and figures out how to mass market it. That's generally how history works, I think. All right, I'm going to get off. Thank you guys for watching. Go back, watch from the beginning. I talk about Citizen Kane for an hour and a half. So, film school, everybody. Thank you for. I'm trying to watch it. I was trying to watch it with more naive eyes. I wasn't going into it like, oh, it's the greatest movie ever made, and let's study the. It was more just like, how is this as a movie? Do I like, how does this? It's, there's parts of it that are a little. There's a few bumps in it for being the greatest movie ever made. It's not totally seamless, There's a couple cuts that are like, there's one part where the sound isn't synced right when he's yelling down at Getty's. His voice is like out of sync with what he's yelling. And I think it's part of the effect. I think it's part of what they wanted. They wanted to embrace the duende. All right. Thank you for watching. Sunday, come to the clown show. Sign up for open mic Monday. Go back, watch the open mic, everybody. We had a great show. We're moving up. Hopefully even next week will be even busier. That's what I'm hoping for. Thank you for watching. Have a great evening. I'm going to an open mic tonight, I think. So maybe I'll see you out there.